everyone. Welcome back to the English Learning Podcast. I'm your host, Jason.
And I'm Julia, your co-host. Thanks so much for tuning in today. We're super excited about this episode because it's something that so many English learners struggle with.
That's right. Today's topic is stop thinking about grammar, speak more naturally. Sounds interesting, right?
Absolutely. Because let's be honest, how many times have you wanted to speak, but you stopped yourself just because you weren't sure if the grammar was right?
Exactly. You knew what you wanted to say, but then, boom, grammar thoughts pop into your head. Is this the right tense? Should I use the here? And then you just go silent.
Or you freeze, right? And the conversation moves on without you. It can be so frustrating, but here's the good news. You don't need perfect grammar to speak fluent and natural English.
Not at all. In fact, focusing too much on grammar can actually slow you down. And that's what we're going to explore today.
We'll talk about why overthinking grammar is a problem, how it affects your fluency, and most importantly, we'll give you real strategies to speak more naturally and confidently.
We'll even share some learner stories, practical tips, and do a little live demo later in the episode. It's going to be fun and super helpful.
So if you've ever felt nervous or stuck when speaking English, this episode is for you.
Grab your tea, coffee, or just get comfy. And let's dive. All right, so let's jump into the real problem here. Overthinking grammar. Julia, have you noticed how many learners are afraid to speak just because they think their grammar isn't perfect?
Oh, yes. All the time. I've met learners who actually know a lot of vocabulary and understand English well, but they freeze when it's time to speak. Why? Because they're constantly asking themselves, am I using the correct tense? What if I make a mistake?
Right. It's like their brain is running a grammar check every second while they're speaking. And that slows them down. Instead of focusing on the message, they're stuck in their heads.
Exactly. Imagine trying to drive a car while constantly checking the engine, the wheels, the oil. Every few seconds, you'll crash. Speaking English is the same. If you're too focused on the mechanics, you'll lose the flow.
That's a great example. And here's another thing. Native speakers don't always speak with perfect grammar either. You'll hear things like, I ain't got none, or he don't care. Not grammatically correct, but people understand it. Communication still happens.
Yes, and native speakers rarely stop in the middle of a conversation and think, should I use past perfect continuous or just past simple? They just speak naturally.
Now, we're not saying grammar isn't important. It's useful, of course. But when you're in a conversation, grammar should not be the first thing on your mind.
That's right. The first thing should be communication, getting your message across, making a connection with the other person. If your grammar isn't perfect, so what?
The truth is, overthinking grammar creates fear. And fear leads to silence. And silence leads to no practice. And no practice leads to no progress.
Boom. That's the real danger. You get stuck in a cycle of fear, but when you let go of that need to be perfect, everything starts to change.
Totally agree. And in the next part, we'll talk about why communication is more important than perfect grammar, and how focusing on connection can actually help you become fluent faster.
Don't go anywhere. We're just getting started.
All right, so we've talked about how overthinking grammar can really hold you back. But now, let's dig deeper. Julia, what's more important, grammar or communication?
Ooh, that's the big question, isn't it? I'd say without hesitation, communication is more important. What's the point of using perfect grammar if no one understands you, or if you're too afraid to speak at all?
Exactly. And let's be real. When people talk to you in daily life, at a shop, in a taxi, at work, They don't care if your sentence is grammatically perfect. They just want to understand you.
Right? Let's say someone says, "Yesterday I go to market." Now that's not grammatically correct, but do we understand it?
Yes, 100%. The meaning is clear. They went to the market yesterday. Communication happened, no confusion.
And here's the thing. Even native speakers make grammar mistakes when they speak. Because spoken English is not the same as written English. In casual conversation, people often break grammar rules, skip words, repeat themselves.
Yeah, like saying I was like, or he don't care. These aren't textbook English, but they're real English. The kind you hear in movies, on the street, with friends.
So, if native speakers can speak freely and make little mistakes, why are learners so afraid to do the same?
Great point. I think it's because learners are trained from the beginning to think that grammar is everything. They study rules, do exercises, take grammar tests.
Exactly, and unfortunately, they start to believe that if their grammar isn't perfect, they shouldn't speak. That's a terrible mindset. It's like thinking you shouldn't dance unless every move is perfect.
Yes! And the truth is, confidence and clarity are much more powerful than perfect grammar. Think of someone who speaks with energy, eye contact, gestures, even with small grammar errors. People love listening to them.
That's so true. And here's something important. When you focus on communicating your ideas, your grammar actually gets better over time, naturally.
Because you're using the language in real situations. You're learning by doing. It becomes a part of you, not just rules in your head.
So to all our listeners out there, please stop putting grammar first. Put your ideas, your thoughts, your voice first. Grammar will follow.
And don't wait until you feel ready. You'll never feel ready if you chase perfection. Speak now. Speak naturally. Speak confidently.
Coming up next, we'll share a few inspiring stories from learners who did just that. They stopped worrying about grammar and started growing fluently.
You don't want to miss it. Okay, Julia. Now I love this part. Real stories from real learners. Because hearing how others have faced the grammar trap and overcome it can be so inspiring.
Yes, I actually want to share a story about one of my students, Maria. She was always so worried about making grammar mistakes that she wouldn't speak in class. She'd get tongue-tied and just freeze.
That sounds familiar to a lot of learners.
Definitely. But one day, I told her, "Maria, forget grammar for a while. Just speak. Make mistakes if you want. The important thing is that you communicate." At first, she was nervous, but she tried it.
And what happened?
She started speaking more, at first with small mistakes. But with each conversation, she gained confidence. After a few months, she was volunteering to answer questions, even chatting with native speakers online.
Wow, that's a huge change.
Exactly. And here's the cool part. Her grammar improved naturally because she was using English all the time, not just studying rules.
That's so powerful. I have a story, too. There's this learner, Ahmed, who worked in a busy restaurant. He needed English to talk with customers, but was afraid to speak because he worried about grammar.
Yeah, that fear can stop you from practicing in real situations.
Right. So I told Ahmed to just focus on helping the customers, answer their questions, take orders, even if his sentences weren't perfect. And guess what? He started speaking more freely. Customers understood him perfectly, and he felt proud.
That's what matters. Communication over perfection.
Exactly. Ahmed even said later that once he stopped overthinking grammar, he actually enjoyed speaking English more.
That's a key point. Enjoyment. When you enjoy speaking, you practice more, and practice leads to progress.
So for our listeners, don't wait for perfect grammar to start speaking. Start with your ideas, your voice, and learn from every conversation.
Mistakes are part of the journey, not the end of it.
Up next, we'll talk about what's really going on in your brain when you overthink grammar and how you can change that. All right, Julia. Now let's talk about what's really happening in our brains when we try to speak English. Why do so many learners freeze or overthink grammar?
Great question, Jason. The answer is all about how our brain processes language. When you first start learning, your brain is like a beginner driver. Everything feels new and slow.
Right. And if you try to control every little detail, like grammar rules, your brain gets overwhelmed. It can't keep up with the speed of real conversation.
Exactly. This is called cognitive overload. When you're focusing too much on grammar, your brain spends all its energy on rules instead of actually communicating.
And when your brain is overloaded, it triggers stress and anxiety. That's why speaking feels scary and difficult.
Yes, but here's the good news. Speaking a language naturally is more about automatic habits than conscious rules.
Just like when you drive a car after years of practice, you don't think about every step. You just do it.
Right. Fluency happens when speaking becomes automatic. You don't translate or check grammar. You just say what you want to say.
So the key is to train your brain to think in English and speak without stopping to check grammar all the time.
And that's why practicing speaking regularly, without pressure, is so important. It helps your brain create those automatic pathways.
Exactly. It's like building a muscle. The more you practice, the stronger and faster it gets.
And when you let go of the fear of mistakes, you free your brain to focus on communication.
That's a huge step, because anxiety lowers your speaking ability, but confidence makes your English flow.
So, listeners, don't be afraid to make mistakes. Your brain needs those real conversations to get better.
Coming up next, we'll share some practical tips you can use right now to stop focusing on grammar and start speaking more naturally. All right, Julia, now that we understand the problem and the psychology behind it, let's get practical. What can our listeners do right now to stop overthinking grammar and start speaking naturally?
Great question, Jason. Here are some simple but powerful tips everyone can use.
Tip number 1. Think in chunks or phrases, not individual words or rules. Instead of building sentences word by word and worrying about grammar, try to learn common expressions or phrases that native speakers use.
Yes. For example, instead of thinking I will go to the store tomorrow, think going to the store tomorrow. It's simpler and you can use it naturally.
Tip number 2. Use simple English confidently. Don't try to use complicated grammar or big words just to sound perfect. Clear and simple is better than complicated and confusing.
Absolutely, people appreciate clear communication. It's okay to say, I want eat instead of I want to eat, especially when you're starting out. The important thing is that you're understood.
Tip number 3. Practice speaking without corrections at first. Find a safe space where you can speak freely. Maybe with a friend, a tutor, or even by recording yourself. Don't worry about mistakes. Just focus on fluency.
Yes, and actually, recording yourself is a great tip. You can listen back and notice your progress, not just your mistakes.
Tip number 4. Use listening and repeating exercises. Listen to short sentences or conversations, then try to repeat them exactly as you hear them. This helps your brain get used to natural rhythms and patterns of English.
Right, and it helps you speak without thinking about grammar because you're copying natural speech.
Tip number 5. Don't translate in your head. Try to think directly in English, even if it's simple thoughts. This will reduce that mental pause when you search for grammar or words.
And here's a bonus tip. Don't aim for perfection. Aim for communication. When you focus on getting your message across, your grammar will improve naturally over time.
Exactly. So to recap, think in phrases, keep it simple, practice freely, listen and repeat, think in English, and focus on communication.
If you practice these tips regularly, you'll find yourself speaking more naturally and with more confidence, much faster.
Next up, we'll do a live conversation demo to show the difference between focusing on grammar and focusing on communication. All right, Julia, now it's time for a live demo. Let's show our listeners the difference between speaking while overthinking grammar and speaking naturally.
Sounds fun? I'll go first. I'll try to speak while focusing too much on grammar.
Okay, let's hear it.
Yesterday, I went to the store and I bought some fruits. I was not sure if the apples were fresh, so I checked carefully.
Wow, I can hear you're really thinking a lot about grammar and word order. It sounds slow and a bit nervous.
Yes, exactly. I'm trying not to make mistakes, but it feels awkward and unnatural.
Now, let me try speaking naturally, without worrying about grammar too much. Yesterday, I went to the store and bought some fruits. I wasn't sure if the apples were fresh, so I checked them carefully.
That sounds much better. You're clear, confident, and fluent.
Thanks. The sentences aren't perfect, but that's okay. The message is clear, and it flows smoothly.
Right. And when you focus on communication, you speak with more energy and confidence.
Exactly. When you focus too much on grammar, you slow down and might even stop talking.
Listeners, try practicing this at home. Say the same sentence 2 ways, one careful and slow, and one natural and relaxed. Feel the difference.
This exercise helps train your brain to speak more freely and naturally.
And remember, it's okay to make mistakes. The goal is to keep the conversation moving.
That's the key. Speak to be understood, not to be perfect. Julia, now let's talk about something every learner worries about: making grammar mistakes. What should people do when they make a mistake while speaking?
Great question, Jason. First of all, don't panic. Making mistakes is completely normal, and actually, it's a very important part of learning.
Right. Mistakes don't mean you're a bad speaker or that you'll never improve. They're just signs that you're trying and learning.
Exactly. And sometimes when you make a mistake, you can even use it as an opportunity. For example, if the other person doesn't understand, you can try to explain in a different way.
Or if someone corrects you, don't feel embarrassed. Thank them and learn from it. But don't let the correction stop your conversation.
Yes, keep going. The key is to keep communicating and not to get stuck on one mistake.
Also, if you notice a mistake after speaking, it's okay to say, "Oh, and then correct yourself quickly.
That's a natural part of conversation, even for native speakers.
So, to all our listeners, embrace mistakes as part of your journey. The more you speak, the better you get.
Mistakes are stepping stones, not roadblocks.
Julia, now that we've covered the mindset and handling mistakes, let's talk about how our listeners can train themselves to speak naturally every day. What are some simple habits they can start?
Great topic, Jason. The first habit I always recommend is shadowing. That means listening to a native speaker and repeating what they say immediately, trying to copy their pronunciation, rhythm, and intonation.
Yeah, shadowing is powerful because it trains your brain and mouth to work together naturally.
Exactly. You can do this with podcasts, YouTube videos, or even movies. Just pick a short sentence or phrase and repeat it several times.
Another easy way is to talk to yourself in English. It might feel strange at first, but narrate your day or describe what you're doing. For example, "I'm cooking dinner," or "Now I'm reading a book."
Yes, it builds your confidence and makes speaking a habit, even if there's no one around to talk to.
Also, try to record your voice regularly. Listen to your recordings to notice improvements and catch words or sounds you want to work on.
And don't be afraid to use language apps or chatbots where you can practice real conversations without pressure.
Finally, the best tip is to speak with real people as often as you can, whether friends, tutors, or language exchange partners.
Because nothing beats real conversation for training natural speaking skills.
So, to sum up, shadow native speakers, talk to yourself, record your voice, use language tools, and speak with real people.
If you practice these every day, even for just a few minutes, your natural speaking will improve a lot faster.
Wow, Julia, what a great episode! Let's quickly recap the key points for our listeners.
Yes. First, remember that overthinking grammar holds you back. Speaking naturally is more about communication than perfection.
Exactly. We shared real stories to show that confidence comes when you stop worrying about grammar mistakes.
And we talked about how your brain works best when speaking becomes automatic, like a habit, not a test.
Plus, we gave some practical tips. Think in phrases, keep it simple, practice without fear, listen and repeat, and speak every day.
So if you want to speak English more naturally, start today. Don't wait for perfect grammar or the right moment.
That's right. Speak with confidence, make mistakes, learn from them, and keep going.
You've got this. Remember, every step you take is progress.
Thanks so much for listening to the English Learning Podcast. We hope you enjoyed today's episode.
See you next time and happy speaking.